That's my presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Corey. Could you also touch on this issue of how the changing temperatures is affecting the food supply for animals? This idea that, there's a whole segments of animals that are dying because their food supply is disappearing and they're starving to death. I mean, this just horrifies me. Is that a part of this story?
Sure, it's huge. It's like everything from the salmon runs in Washington and Oregon. So we have orca, entire pods of orca dying and starving to death. I'm sure you all saw years ago or last year, time is so weird in the Trump years, right? Where the mother orca carried her dead baby for 17 days that had starved to death after she gave birth to it because she was starving to death. And that's caused a lot by dams, but it's also caused by temperature changes and the water. So the whole salmon populations are just incredibly in decline, and almost, I think, all the salmons are listed as endangered. We have species, ocean acidification is terrifying on its own. And that's going to, as the oceans become more acidic, and as I explain to people, they're not going to be like a can of soda acidic, but even slight changes impact pteropods, which is the most important, or the starting point of the food chains and oceans. So that eventually impacts all species as you move up: salmon, tuna, the predator species, coral reefs. So even small temperature changes. Oh, and then we even have like polar bears, right? I mean, their sea ice is melting, and we've all seen the pictures of the literally starving polar bears. They recently were listed as an endangered species just a few years ago. And so a little temperature change means that there's no sea ice, which means that they can't get out to their food. They're starving. The big ice shelves that are breaking off in Antarctica are reducing the populations of penguins because they can't even swim around the glaciers that are breaking off. And then by the time they do, they get back to their babies are dead. So yeah, small temperature changes, huge impacts on nature, more so than us, even though we see it mostly in extreme weather.
Mm-hmm. And then just last thing, since if people aren't depressed enough, how about the fires? How much the wildlife impact from all these fires around the world, in Australia and United States and elsewhere?
In Brazil, devastating. So like you're talking about whatever, like what do we lose? Like 3 million koala, kangaroo, marsupials, these amazing species in Australia because those fires just got completely out of control. Remember, we just started last year with that. That was December, February before the pandemic lockdown in March, and everyone in the world was watching horrified these fires. Brazil, a rainforest on fire, out of control. And I always have these horrifying images in mind of sloths trying to get away from fires. One, there's not supposed to be fires in the Amazon rainforest, so they don't have the capacity for getting away. And a sloth is the cutest and the slowest animal on the planet, and also severely endangered. So yes, the fires, which humans are causing to create farmland for palm oil in certain places, Malaysia, Borneo, or cattle, United States, Brazil, Australia, but then they get out of control because the temperature changes and the wind patterns are affected by climate change. So again, everybody's connected, everybody is suffering except for CEOs and Wall Street.
And last question, Corey, can you just describe a little bit about the scope of the animal rights coalitions, grassroots movement? How big is this part of the equation? And, so like when we're thinking about building coalitions are really this network essentially, what kind of passion and power do you think that this side of the equation brings to the fight if we were all to link up?
So just like any coalitions, there's a little bit, everybody has different issues. Some are straight up animal rights, kind of vegan. Some are hunting organizations. I'm wearing my National Wildlife Federation jacket right now, but because I used to work for them for like 9 years, they're kind of a sportsman organization. There is, PETA on one side, and then there's a wide range of opinions and attitudes, but I don't think it matters. I think we all need to hook up our arms and stop climate change crisis and make sure that there's money, and if there is money provided, that some of it goes to jobs that help wildlife as well. So I think the broader, more diverse, everybody needs to come into this. This is like a war, right? A war on climate change. So I would just discourage anybody from allowing people to push groups apart because, divide and conquer. They're really good at that. The oil and gas industry, certain members of Congress. So we shouldn't let that happen. We should just stay focused because stopping climate change will help everybody and everything.
And so you're just 2 words less on your coalition and the breadth of it.
Oh, right. Sorry, I always forget to say that. Endangered Species Coalition. I'm the senior policy and grassroots advisor at the Endangered Species Coalition. We're a member group of over 450 groups. So we have like big guys like NRDC and Sierra Club and Earth Justice and Defenders of Wildlife. And then we have smaller local groups like Save the Manatees or Save the Spotted Owl. And so we act as like a liaison, and we share information back and forth about what's happening in the federal government, what's happening with regs under the Trump administration or Obama or whomever, how people can help, when they should do comment letters. And they tell us about crises happening on the ground and their communities. Does a species need listing? Is a recovery plan? So that's like how we work. And since we are a coalition, that's why I feel like I can also help this coalition, because we're used to working with diverse groups coming from just, different mission statements and different goals, but the overall goal, protecting wildlife. So that's how we work, and we want to share our experience working. And also we would like to join your coalition and have y'all join us, because the more, the better.
Wonderful. This is very exciting. I'm excited. We're going to help save the animals.
Cory and Todd, my wife and I just watched last weekend David Attenborough's most recent film, his summary statement. He's 92 now, and it was just incredible, very powerful. You did a great job, Cory, of summarizing it, but he provides that visual context, and I can highly recommend it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I love all of those. I feel like I've seen them all a million times, and I'm still watching them. And they're just so powerful. All right, so thank you, everybody. That gets us into that. We'll be doing these periodically, as you know, as big new teams join our effort. There are various policy sector that are growing in different directions. I won't go into that today because that's for the Saturday meetings. So now I'm going to do a presentation similar, not similar. It's derived from the same presentation that I did the other day for the policy team, but this one is focused on making the network. So here it comes. I hope this is shorter than the last one and that we have some time for real input. So I put the document in the chat. That is the brainstorming document. So all the issues I'm going to talk about again are going to be listed there. And that's the document where you can go and provide your specific input. So this is the Earth Build Network, a ground game is what we're talking about, building unity on both the policy front and then networks and coalitions. So the Wednesday meetings are going to be about the networks, and the Saturday meetings about the policy. So we have 2 tasks. We're going to compile a bill, and we're going to build this network. And they're interconnected, of course, because the network, the drafting of the bill and the groups that provide input to the bill and the policy are going to become, the network, in addition to all the activists, of course. Just want to clarify our meeting schedule again, which I did at the top of the last meeting, because I know I got you all very confused. But with 100 of us here, I guess some people have figured it out. So we're having 2 main meetings a month, as I've mentioned a couple of times. On the second Saturday going forward, it will be the policy meeting, where we're digesting and reviewing all the policy sector teams, where we're working on the bill essentially. And then on the 4th Wednesday of every month, we will have this meeting, which will be like it's going, the network, the adopted district, our outreach, new partnerships, and current movement updates. From now, we have Food and Water Watch going to provide those, and Environmental Defense Fund, whom we have today. Then the sector teams, of course, we're going to schedule those meetings separately. Partners in formation, you may have seen this is growing rapidly. Our indigenous groups that were at the symposium are helping advise us, and WCP has formally said yes. This is 0 Hour and Fridays for the Future are on board. Endangered Species, you just heard from, Family Farm Action, Environmental Defense Fund, National Lawyers Guild folks are involved, and Netroots Nation, which is an exciting partnership, March for Science, and lots of individual experts. So going into the substance of today, our trick is to formalize our existing sort of ragtag band into a little bit more of a formal network. And it doesn't really change a lot, frankly, from how we've been operating to do this. But I think it's the time has come sort of for this level of institutionalization. It makes it sound horrible. So that's where we're going with this. And we'll, over the next couple months, We'll delve into these ideas, get input, and we'll go through a process. So today I'll go over the process, the principles, action agreements, and community agreements. I covered some of this about a month ago when we did the overview of everything, but I did it very quickly. So we're going to do some more. And again, the document is there for you to click open and provide input to. You can also provide input in the chat, which would be fine, and we'll parse through that to find the nuggets of input. So the themes are communication. We're going to always be communicating. Consultation. I'm just describing how we're consulting. There's the document. We're going to work toward consensus on this part, on ensuring that we're happy with the process. And then compromise is always an element, but I don't want to get too fixated on compromise because I think we're going to find our way together, particularly with respect to how we set up the network. Now, there'll be more compromising conversations later, but not even in the policy context. We'll deal with that issue later. So the practice, we'll have input to brainstorming like we're doing. We'll condense what comes out of that. I think we need a handful of people. So if you end up commenting on this document and the brainstorming document, maybe I'll use that as an indication of your interest in this arena, and I'll convene those who have commented in a separate little meeting so that we can work through the comments and then come back to the group, this group, and present where that stands. Then we'll condense and summarize that, present it back to this general meeting, like I was just saying, and for input, and revise and repeat as needed till we're comfortable that this process is okay with folks. That's just the process. So then in terms of the meat of it all, content, the primary principles that we've put forward so far to start the conversation are that we'll be transparent and inclusive. And we always operate this way. So if you're new, you might not know that, but this is why we have all of our meetings are open and public. There's really nothing finagling going on behind the scenes. And that's an intentional paradigm shift that I think is critical to building a mass movement. Can't do it in secret. And I've just got off the phone call with some groups and I'm like, you have all these secret agendas. I don't know how you think you're ever going to pass a bill with a secret group and a secret bill. So this is very important. I don't think that we can generate the goodwill in the word of mouth and expand to the size that we need with secret undertakings. So anyway, that's why that's there. Community, we've talked about before. Some folks have added some more thoughts to that and the community agreements, but it's essentially to make everybody feel welcomed. We have to work, we're all from one planet, right? And that planet is in peril. So it's so easy to get divided and it's harder to stick together. But by fostering a sense of community where we care and respect each other and support each other in our anxiety and panic attacks and worries, I think that'll help us have a stronger relationship upon which to go into the fighting that we're going to be doing later in the year. Autonomy, I just want everyone to always remember that you are autonomous. This is all volunteer. No one's ever conscripted, coerced. I don't tell people how to say things or what to think about things as a rule. I do that very intentionally because I know I don't like it. And so I assume other people don't like it. And I think the minute we start telling people how to think and how to talk and what to do on their website and, that we're in the conflict zone as opposed to freedom zone. So it's a very important piece of it.
And Todd, just to chime in on that number 4, that autonomy piece, as we go through the structure that you were talking about, a lot of folks have been messaging me just to ask about how to do outreach to new potential members and folks that we're trying to bring into the coalition, whether it's plastics focused organizations or oceans or a variety of different kind of specialties that we thought maybe we didn't have enough good representation there. And just to echo what you said right now, which is, of course, we're trying to provide a structure that makes it easy for people to join and understand what's going on. But with the youth groups that we invited, Fridays for Future and 0 Hour and Youth for Nature, we just kind of want to empower them to choose their own mini structure and let them do their organizing for climate legislation, how they feel is right for them. And I think that is this delicate balance that you've managed to sort of thread that needle of bringing in a lot of people and providing some structure, but also letting all the mini groups organize themselves as they see fit.
Thank you, Atel. That's Atel Higanet, who's one of our invaluable contributors pulling all this together. Thank you, Atel. Always feel free to do this, jump in like that. And we're also doing this autonomy thing when it comes to the adopted district. So don't forget, the idea is even when we've put together a package of bills and we've reviewed them together, you can support or not support bills, and your local groups can support or not support groups. So the autonomy thing is a big piece. And a lot of coalitions get hung up on autonomy because they try to conscript people into ways of thinking. Both and, so we're going to do the individual bills and the big vision. We're going to encourage, immediate action and support those actions. And we're going to plan for the more medium term of the next 2 years. And then other principles, we're open to those, Jimenez principles. A lot of those, the Jimenez principles really reflect some of these broader themes. So we can look at that and see how they fit together. I think there have been some others suggested in the brainstorming document. Action agreements. So this is about really promising to participate, and we just need everybody to pick up some role. So you have to find your niche. We're very clear about this. We never pressure people to do anything. We want people to pick what they want to do, but we want everyone to do something. So, the first thing everyone can do is study and vote on all the solutions in the policy digest and submit missing items through the digest there, the document process. Participate in a legislative team on the policy analysis. So that's the policy sectors. Review the bills in the climate bill package. That's a very important thing that people can do. The organizations, we need organizations to do, and we're trying to convince the major organizations to look at that and come up with their own package as well. To serve as a congressional district or state lead, that's the AED, which we'll go over. Designate internal staff for network coordination and action. So a lot of you folks are that for your group, obviously, I would imagine, if you're with a group. And so we just want to sort of formalize that once we get into the agreement, and we'll say, okay, this group is signed on to the network and they've designated this person as the lead and the liaison. I want to encourage the groups to align their internal teams to legislative action and coalition, whether it's with us or others. We'll want to try to link our communications team and that's a very important piece in our marketing and other folks that are thinking about that. We need all your social media folks to be connected on a listserv of some kind that we'll come up with so that we can finally speak with one voice. And I can't really overstate the importance of this. As you probably already know, there's millions of actors talking about things in this space. And it's almost like a white noise at some point. And so we have to speak collectively somehow so that we can penetrate that noise and have strategic impact with our communications. So that's a big theme that we'll be continuing to talk about over the course of the year. And then help grow the network and weave civil society together for legislative action. This is probably the most important thing. We do not have power now. Everybody's that's working in the movement is scrambling for positioning, and it's almost sad, really, because they have to work within the system as it exists, right? You can't just walk away from that. But how much progress is actually going to be made? That remains to be seen. And we can use, though, the desire for immediate action as a catalyst to get people to work together. And that's sort of what we're doing by inviting right now 2 major organizations, EDF and Food and Water Watch, to come and present to all of you regularly what the current action, what's going on reconciliation, on legislation within the administration. Not necessarily so that we could all take concerted effort together, although we can see about that, because that can be hugely time consuming. But at least we can start to weave all the stories and the parties together, and you can then participate when there's clear direction for action from that realm, which is still in the works, as I understand it. So I hope y'all are chatting and commenting and whatever. I know I'm going through it. Community agreements, that's more about how we treat each other in community. And this is very important. It's important for me to feel safe in the space. As a gay man, we always think about creating safe space. And you'd be surprised how a little antagonism can create unsafe space. And so being patient with our process, because we're making this up as we go. And that's really more of a personal plea to be patient with me trying to lead this process as I make it up as we go. but it's not just me, it's a whole group of people. So obviously, that we not lobby each other more than you absolutely have to, because your passion just compels you. No one appreciates and understands that more than me. And I understand that the biggest problem in most movements is that there's no pathway for you to participate and to have your voice heard. And that's why, you know, nobody stays together. So, but at the same time, if you have a passion, a particular policy passion, and we're having a discussion about something else like community agreements, and you take that opportunity to give us a mini lecture on the topic, as much as I do admire that, yeah, I really do. We have to agree not to do that, because that is going to frustrate people. It frustrates me. And we're trying to create channels for that communication through the policy sectors. And it may be, so anyway, that's enough on that. Focus on what you want versus what you don't want. There's a tendency sometimes that we don't want this, we don't want that, we don't want this. And we do have to keep a mind on that. And there's a lot of people working on that. Corey mentioned it, what we don't want in things. These are very important. But in terms of our process and our journey together, it's, okay, so you don't want X, what would replace X? What is the proactive thing that you want? So if you don't want nuclear energy, how are we going to build renewable energy at scale fast enough? So I'm trying to encourage that kind of attention shift. If you don't want military funding, how are we going to, band together around renewables, get rid of oil, and the reason for military funding dissipates? That kind of linkages. Conflict resolution process, which we need to have on our next conversation, a detailed presentation on that. And I have to figure out who to invite. If you have thoughts on that, let's do that. I'm thinking about inviting my Radical Ferry community, because we've lived through this journey. And then we should probably consider whether we want conflict of interest statements provision. I'm iffy about that.
About the conflict resolution process.
Oh, please go ahead and tell. Yeah.
I have a strong feeling that there will be a lot of folks who will disagree about how much energy should go into budget reconciliation or specific bills or building for an omnibus bill. And I think it's so important for us to just like all agree that whatever path the different members of this coalition are taking, to be really respectful that that's their path, and not to criticize, or at least to do so in a very constructive way. And I think beyond that sort of looming fight I worry about around the style, like what kind of legal improvements we're fighting for, I think that there's definitely also going to be some substance that will be explosive, like carbon capture storage. And so maybe one of the things is we could do whenever somebody joins a coalition is to sort of sign on and say, I promise to be respectful and constructive, even when, I disagree strongly with somebody else in the coalition. I think it would be really helpful to have that as a kind of housekeeping rule, so that we create a space where all the sort of even very difficult, explosive problems that we're going to be jockeying around will be resolved in a way that doesn't like allow the oil and gas lobby to create huge divisions and break us apart.
And so thank you, of course, always for that. And this could not be more important. The current status quo is conflict within civil society, I would say, and among activists even. And that only benefits the opposition, which is not in conflict and run like in a corporate hierarchy. And so they don't have to deal with these kinds of things, human things. They've created corporations, which are like machines. So with us, it's very important. And it's about personal, sometimes conflict is interpersonal. And there are all sorts of processes that are already available and established that I think are good and out there, where we can have a way for these things to be resolved as they arise. We'll also have a process for input. So if you're unhappy with anything that's going on in the group, we'll think of a way to provide that input and have a small group of people that can help address those kinds of things. Those are just the sort of the human interaction level of things. Structurally, to avoid conflict, we're going to go through this very transparent policy discussion process. And you don't have to fight with each other. You can, like if it's a group, you can have your opinion reflected in the spreadsheet. And so we'll all see that. And then once we get to the end of that journey, there will be policy disagreements as they are today. Hopefully we will be closer to each other. And it may be, we will construct a process to handle those conversations and even to resolve them in an anticipatory way. So for example, it could have a core bill that, you know, everybody says, yeah, that's non-controversial. And then there could be 10 or 20 or 50 addendums on different topics. And then everybody can vote on the ones they like. And then we'll see where everybody stands. And maybe it's an affinity group on the topic that's controversial. So we'll find ways to help you find your compatriots that care the way you do about your issue and empower you to form that network. And then we'll all go to the barricades together, and you can carry your battle there where the real decisions are going to be made in Congress. We're not going to ultimately be making final decisions, unfortunately. So anyway, there'll be a lot to discuss on that front as we go forward, but it's very important to keep it up front. This conflict of interest statements, I'm on the fence about, because that would really mean like some organizations have that, like U.S. Climate Action Network has it, and to be a member, you have to attest that you don't get any funding from the fossil fuel community. My perspective on this is a little bit complicated, so we'll think about this over time. But because we're doing an open, transparent, and inclusive process that is visible for everyone to see, the whole benefit of a coalition or network is that those within the group issues become less powerful and become less germane. So my hope is that we can get to the place where we're like, there is no real clear, you got to pass this test to come into our party. If we interface in a way like we're doing, where everybody sees everything, it's okay that people come with their perspective and whatever reason they have that perspective, because there's no clever way for that to carry the day, really. So anyway, that's a longer conversation for another day. Somebody added meeting agreements. I think it was Lavona. And so I thought that was great. And we can include them so these are just separate, like how we're going to conduct our meetings. Often people conduct them using Robert's rules in the old days. If we get to that level of within our policy sector teams where we're having discussions, I think it's mostly administrative, but we'll see. We might need some of that. A vibes check is sometimes used in meetings where if it's getting heated, we have a few people already designated to intervene and to give us all a breath. And those kinds of mechanisms to calm things down a little bit. We have a few people who have offered that. We can formalize that. Somebody put in positive input and mutual respect. I think this sort of speaks for itself. We've been pretty good about that, I think, for already. I think we're doing great on these things, frankly. Staying on point for discussions. I'm going to reiterate that because sometimes we open the discussion and people use it as an opportunity to lobby. So please resist your impulse. And stack process. We want to figure out what that is. It's been working out all right, but we do have a few regulars who, speak freely because they feel more comfortable. We just want to be mindful of that as we create space for people who are new, which we're pretty good at. We used to have a core team meeting that was very informal and everybody could talk. And I will stay on after meetings generally to just, if you haven't had a chance and you want to talk to me and whatever, and I'll just wait and we'll just have open door conversations for anyone who needs to, who's confused or has questions. Today, we can't do that because the faith team has scheduled a meeting for after this meeting at 1:30 to 2. That's going to be a 101 on a lot of the basics of our group for new people. So please stay on for that if you'd like. I think everyone's welcome to that. Lavona can tell us in a minute. All right, so that was a lot. I don't know how the chat's going, and can anyone tell, or are we okay to just go into adopt a district, and then we're going to invite Brenna Cohen to present on that, and then we're going to have a discussion about those things that and we'll take questions, etc.
Sharonda had a comment or a question. Do you want to entertain that now?
How are we doing on time? 12:44. All right, we have 15 minutes, so before 1 o'clock. I assume we could go a little bit late if Felice is here. I think we should let Brenna present first, And just real quick on the adopted district, and then we'll take questions. So I'll go fast. We're trying to get all congressional districts adopted. I'm not sure of the numbers, so she's going to talk about that. I'm confused about that. Whatever our numbers are, let's double them by April. And the idea is to build local coalitions on the bill package and to unite those activists so they're ready to go and lobby together. The leads are Brenna Cohen, and I think Rachel McLaughlin is joining them. Other folks have moved to different roles. We have a listserv for the adopted district now where we'll be communicating with you all at once. We have that toolkit. We have a report back form for after your meetings. We have lobby training. The most important thing that you're doing as you're doing your growing your adopted district or meeting your local activists and groups is to refer them to the policy sector teams so that you find a group that's great on wildlife and you want to send that group to Corey, as if she wouldn't have already known about it. But that's just an example. And other sectors, it's growing. So we just want you to help feed new groups into the policy sector work. And then the Faith has its own adopted district, and Livoda and team are having a meeting after this, and she'll tell you more about that in a minute. And I'm not going to go into the climate bill package now, but there is one of all the bills that we reviewed. We'll be revisiting these bills in the policy sector teams and adding to those bills there, and then those will be the bills that everyone can work on their adopted district for now. So with that, I'll stop and invite Brenna Cohen to say a few words about adopted district, how it's going, what their plans are. Welcome, Brenna.
Thank you, Todd. I feel like this is the quick by the numbers update because I know that we still have some more content to go through. So a quick snapshot of where we are with adopted district. We have at least 103 people signed up who have committed to their specific congressional district. We have 59 districts. In the lead, the state with the most districts is New York. Tara Vamos is the lead for that state, so good job for New York. They are all in communication with each other. Runners up, the runner-up is Colorado with 5 districts covered. And we've got Illinois. Actually, I was wrong. Illinois has 6. So anyway, I could go through all the states. We're going to have a map, which Sarah is working on. So you'll be able to go to the website and actually see which districts are taken, which ones need more representation. States that we need coverage right now: New Hampshire, Ohio, Texas, Idaho, South Carolina. Those are just some of the states where we are looking for people to take on. So as Todd mentioned, we have a listserv. Somebody's asking about the list of adopt a district. That's going to go up on that map. And we have an intake form. So anybody who is interested in getting involved with that, or if you want to refer other people to AAD, the simplest thing right now is to have them email me, and then we'll send you, or we can send you an intake form. Speaking of these forms, we are in the process of updating and consolidating our adopted district welcome packet. So Nancy Lawrence has been working on that. She's part of the Faith team. So in the next week or so, you will see some new documents coming out with that. And I think that they will also be easier to manage. Looking to see if there's anything else. I think that's it for the moment. I will keep updating you each month. We had a very successful meeting last 2 weeks ago, and we'll be having those regularly. We're not saying they're monthly yet. I think right at the moment they're as needed as we consolidate and revamp our adopted district. Todd, anything else you'd like me to mention? I
think that sounds good. We also have the adopted district people listed on the website under the bill package. If you click on votes, and we're going to be restructuring that a little bit as well, so it's a little more clear. But just as a note, if you're signed up for adopted district, the presumption is going to be that your name and email are going to be made public. If you don't want that to happen, please let us know. And that's, I think, the way we're handling it. And because we want to, you're supposed to be a public, visible point person for other people in your district to connect with. That's your main reason and your main role as the lead of a district. And it's fine if you don't want to have that public a role and you want to do something more privately. So just let us know, though. And then we want to get up a list, if we could, of all the states that have somebody and then all the states that don't have someone, and put that in the chat periodically, because we really want you to volunteer for your state. So if you haven't volunteered to help recruit for your state or to adopt your district, and you're not on the policy sector team, now is your chance. Please feel free to type it in the chat or write Brenna privately. And if you haven't, hopefully you're getting, if you've signed up, you're getting emails from Brenna, and they'll onboard you. And any questions along those lines, reach out to her. And we just got to really staff this up a little bit more. We need people to lead each state. So we'll get that, who's covered and who's not out there soon. All right, anything else? Lavona, I know this is sort of out of the blue, but is there anything else you need to say real quickly about your the faith meeting plans for everyone?
Great, sure. First of all, just in terms of, hey, good to see you. Immediately following, Todd had just mentioned previously and asked if others are invited to that. Yes, absolutely, at 1:30. So it'll be a little bit of a deeper dive at 1:30 about Adopt a District and the sector teams. And one of the reasons we were doing that as the faith team is that we are having this meeting on Friday, and we sort of wanted people to get up to speed before that, so they weren't asking like, what's AAD? So we'll be doing that a little bit more at 1:30, and everyone is welcome. So we are having a meeting. This is the first one we've had since September 16th, our first gathering of the faith folks, and following the meeting that we had, we had a faith sector meeting on the symposium. And so we're meeting at 2:30 p.m. and Eastern time, and you don't have to register for it, but I'm going to give the link to everyone, but you have to be on our faith list. So if you can do that, I will put that link again in here. I did put it in earlier, but I will put it in. So if you want to self-identify as being, in the faith community, and that's how you will get the link for the meeting on Friday. And I'm really excited. There's kind of three parts actually to the meeting. So it goes from 2:30 to 4. And from at the beginning part, we're really opening by grounding and centering our work with the frontline communities. We're very happy we will have somebody from St. James Parish in Louisiana who is working against a big plastic plant that is going to be placed there. And that partnership, which is a faith-based partnership, and they also have a grant with the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. So we will have a team of people from that speaking. Then Todd will be back, and that's where we hope to go, a little bit deeper also in the discussion about moving forward. And then following that meeting, and also we're going to have some breakout groups so that there can be discussion. There's plans for 2 breakout groups, so you actually get to meet people and have some discussions. And then at 4 o'clock, we're really inviting people who are sort of rabbis, ministers, those people who are responsible for their flock. And we'll have Reverend Rashinda will be facilitating a meeting. Karina Gore will be there also, and some other faith folks to discuss how best to meet the needs that ministers and those faith leaders who have, a congregation to address. So hope you can join us. And I will once again put that email link in there if you want to join the faith team. We now are at about 150 people who have joined that listserv. So we started out in September with about 46. And so we're really excited about that.
Wow.
Thank you for the time.
Oh, goodness. Lavona, bravo to everyone working on that, and especially Lavona, who's unbelievable. And it just makes me have hope that one day I could escape and Lavona could take over. I could run away, and I shouldn't say those things out loud, I know. All right, so let's see. All right, at 1 o'clock we're supposed to have Felice. Is Felice with us, Greg?
She's not here yet, but she's going to come on at 1.
Okay, so in the meantime, let's take a few questions. Who was it?
Sharonda.
Sharonda. Go ahead.
Hi, how are you? I wanted to talk about the conflict of interest portion because you seemed a little hesitant about it, right? Were you hesitant?
I'm on of two minds about the need for it, I guess is what I.
Okay, so let me tell you the difference. It doesn't have to be scary. It's just a coverage statement to say, hey, if someone, let's just say hypothetically, someone in the organization had a business for something that we needed and we decided to use their services, it would mean that they were more competitive or they did it at a sub-market price or fee. Let's say a website costs $5,000 a year, and let's say someone in the organization did it for $3,500. That's fine because we're getting the service and it's not like they're price gouging. So it would be that if we use someone in the organization, that conflict of interest would say that they're not doing it to per se become rich, but they're doing it because there's a service and there's a fee attached and it's sub-market fee.
Oh, sure. I appreciate what you're saying about that particular issue, and sort of like it's a question of self-dealing. We're just going to be clear about that.
Right.
All right, thank you for that. If you could just put that into the notes on that document somewhere, that would be useful. We don't do a lot of hiring, not having any money, but
just in case.
Yes, just in case. All right, thank you for that. Thank you for that. And great. Okay, any other comments? And don't forget the document is designed for this. And then please, if you would like, it's becoming clear to me that given, now we've condensed our meetings to so few, we're not going to have as much time for discussion in them as we've been having a little bit. So be sure if you want to have input, and I need and want your input on this, because we can't just create it and then everyone doesn't say anything and then no one wants to join the network because they didn't. So it really has to be interactive. So I'm asking you to take it to your organizations, look at it, talk about it, and provide comment, at least some note, hey, I'm here commenting on these principles and agreements. So that way, I think we're going to need to convene a meeting of people who have commented to work through those. It seems clear now that we're not going to be able to do that on these big calls of almost 100 people. So please do that if you want to be part of that discussion. And of course, we'll come back. So it's not exclusionary in any way, but it's just a way to come up with a little working team to work through comments and clean up the document. Any other comments real quick before we're fine? Felicia's due at 1.
Will the PowerPoint presentation be shared with everyone?
I sent it out in a link in the 2 seconds before the meeting, but let me give it to you again.
Okay. And where can we find all these documents that you are referring to so that we can take it back to our organizations? And then also, last question, Todd, where's your contact? Can you put your contact information in the chat because I would like to follow up with you directly?
Sure. And you're all welcome to do that, of course, anytime. We have a whole list of, if somebody could grab the list of our contact list. So let me just say a minute for that. I didn't go over the new worksheets again that we went over. Let me just screen share for a minute and do that because I think it's important.
And I just pasted in the chat for everyone the document that we've been going over today. And as people were talking, I tried to type in some of what they were saying, and I could see some people were typing while we were talking. So it's
in the brainstorming version, Atel? Yeah. Oh, wonderful. So just real quickly, we have a few main sheets. We have the teams worksheet, the policy teams worksheet, and that's where all the teams, the leads will have access. Everyone else will have commenting access, and you will put your team's names and emails, and then outreach groups that you're going after and new policy documents that we want to look at. All that will be in that worksheet. And then there's a policy worksheet, which is where we're comparing the substance. So we start out with our climate crisis policy digest, which is and then we added the House report and the Senate, and we'll be adding individual bills and other big policy ideas as they come together, which there's a lot of those in the pipelines. You'll hear about more in the next policy meeting. Then we have a few listservs, that you're probably on already, and we're still clearing that up a little bit. So you might be on getting multiple copies. Apologies for that. And then you'll be hearing from Christine Key if you're in the policy sector, and Brenna if you're on AAD. But what I was going to say is, though, in those worksheets, in both of them, I think, there's a tab that says materials. And if you click on that tab, materials, you will see all the various documents that we talk about all the time. And hopefully it's pretty cleanly organized. And so anything you're looking for should be under those material tabs. And on one of them, it says contact sheet. So it has the contact for all the leads of every policy sector and every group that we have. So you can contact folks directly. That's the reason I went to this slide, to tell you about that. It's not on the slide. It's not important. This is just in the email. Some of these documents are linked conveniently again. Timeline we didn't talk about, but we did in the last meeting. So April, from now until April, we're going to be digging into all this hard work, and we might have a climate congress in April for several days with basically policy sector report backs of where everything stands, and hopefully if we're ready, the network launch, which would mean that we've formalized this, we have everything ready to go, some website stuff. Maybe we'll come up with some early core demands. We'll see if we can pull that off. Then April to August, we build on what we've created, leading up to Netroots Nation meeting in August. And we're going to talk with them this afternoon about being the featured topic at their pre-conference, which is a day before the, and then hopefully pass the bill in 2021. So our next steps is, Greg, feel free to interrupt me when Felice shows up.
She's here.
Oh, okay. So I'll come back to next steps after Felice starts, but I'll just mention them real quickly since we're here. Go and talk to your groups about the network, and the elements that we've been discussing. Discuss those elements, provide feedback to the document. That's the most important thing. And then, of course, join Adopted District, study the climate bill package, and volunteer to adopt your state. And then go vote on the policy digest. Okay, I'll stop there. Welcome, Felice from the Environmental Defense Fund. I wanted Felice to join us to brief you because in the symposium, I just really appreciated everything she said about the macro vision. And it seems like we're very simpatico about the need to build a mass movement and to communicate with the grassroots and engage them in everything. So that was one of the main reasons. But everything she said just was like, ding, ding, ding. This is a person who's on the same wavelength. So she's been gracious enough to agree to attend all our regular meeting monthly and to give us an update on the current insider workings of the movement and what's going on so we can be aware and hopefully weave ourselves together over time. Felice, welcome, and please take it away.
Okay, well, I feel a lot of pressure, but thank you, Todd, for inviting me. And so it's on my calendar. I'll join the last 30 minutes of every month. And, it's in some ways, I want it to be a conversation. I'm not planning to come with prepared remarks every month. And so I also just invite you, if you are picking up things, if you have questions, if you see stuff that's coming across your email or social media feeds, or if you want suggestions or if I can be a resource, please bring that as well, because this is supposed to be a conversation, and I don't profess to have all the answers. So that's, first of all, just an open invitation. And I guess, you can either email them to me or send them to Todd and Greg on the front end, and I can make sure that I have this before I join. So I'm gonna just sort of start by kind of sharing kind of my approach to organizing, which may not was probably pretty obvious when I spoke at the symposium, which is we have to grab whatever opportunity we have, because it's through getting some wins under our belts, we're going to build momentum. And I say that because we're trying to kind of find the right balance of crafting a bill and coming up with an overall climate policy that's going to really kind of not only meet the moment, but meet the challenge. line up everything and work towards passage in 2022. But there's a lot of time between now and then, and we have a real opportunity in front of us to make significant progress. And the more progress we can make on climate this year, the more that office holders will be comfortable continuing to do stuff on climate. And perhaps even more important, the more the cost will go down, and the cost of transitioning to 100% clean energy. Whether that's in the transportation sector, or if it's around energy efficiency, or if it's around clean electric power, we gotta start making progress, because the more that we make that progress, the cost of a full transition for the economy will go down. If you think about what's ahead of us, it is a huge undertaking, right? If you think about almost every aspect of our economy is powered by fuels that contribute to climate change. And so the pivot is happening. It's happening faster in some industries and some sectors. It's happening faster in some states, and even in some communities where they've already made, commitments to drive down climate pollution. But if you're trying to get the entire economy across the entire country and make sure that whether you live in Kansas or Maine or Texas or Washington State, that you're getting the same opportunities and opportunities to invest in clean energy solutions, that's going to be costly. It's a big undertaking. So the more we can make progress now, that those costs will go down. I'm going to kind of share what's most immediate in the queue, and then make an offer to you, which is, if you want to get more involved in helping to build support, or want to get more plugged into like the nitty gritty, then I will help connect you, and I'll connect you via Todd or another avenue. First of all, I want to start with today. Today's Climate Day in the White House. The president is rolling out a series of executive orders, and they might seem like, on the face of them, like, meh, it doesn't seem very inspiring or impactful, but it also kind of encapsulates the approach that he's taking. I'm going to share really quickly what those are in really, really high level. And I should just say, Todd, did you already cover this? Am I going to be repeating myself? No. Okay. And I can circulate later, or Todd can circulate. There's a website where all of this is going to be sitting. There is a toolkit that's been developed that includes fact sheets and other information for those of you who are on social media. You can use some of that, or if you just want to get more acquainted with the policies, it's all packed in there. There's 4 things that that's going to be in this in these executive orders, and one that's a presidential memorandum. One is actually bringing science back and scientific integrity back into all of the rulemaking that the federal government is doing. You remember the previous administration really, significantly devalued science and the role of science in setting standards. And I would say not just for the environment, but even just public safety and public health standards. So that's going to be one. The administration is taking what he's calling the whole of government approach to addressing climate change. This will include on the global level, global scale. So working really to drive a global ambition And John Kerry has a new role in the administration. And the date to keep in mind is they're going to be working to pull together global leaders to talk about climate in Washington, Earth Day. So think Earth Day, think climate, think global. The second one is, and part of the whole of government is a new role that former EPA Administrator Gina McCarthy is going to play. She's going to set up a national climate task force working across 21 federal agencies to make sure that we're delivering on an ambitious plan. So that will include a whole host of things and no small task. The second one is pushing environmental justice. If you remember, this is a really big priority of the entire administration coming in, and is going to look at updating policies that have been basically sitting since the Clinton years. I don't think they've been updated since Clinton was in the White House. It's been a long time ago. And part of that is to make sure that any policies that are going to get developed, that 40% of the overall benefits, whether it's economic benefits, health benefits, moves to underserved communities. And he's very committed to making sure that that's both urban and rural. And having lived both in urban and rural America, we know that the needs are very, very different, and they're both very urgent. And so a commitment to moving those benefits into both areas. The third one is really focusing on jobs and creating jobs, good jobs with good standards, good labor standards, good safety standards, and that they are also distributed. So again, that they're not just clustered in some communities, and particularly looking at communities that are overly or have been traditionally dependent on fossil fuels. So if you think about industries where the power sector, coal power plants have been operating and you're transitioning away, making sure that jobs are really steering into communities that have been traditionally dependent on fossil fuels. And then the last one is two more. One is leading by example. And so this is about looking at the purchasing power of the federal government. If you think about everything that the federal government buys, they have a tremendous, we call the power of the purse. I mean, we all, as consumers, we know that. So they have a very big purse. And so they're looking at what are the changes that they can make via their purchasing and procurement. So whether it's, switching over a federal fleet, or making decisions about what kind of fuel they're going to use to power their equipment. So setting some example, and really focusing on like made in America. It's a very, very much a focus on boosting U.S. manufacturing to meet the needs of the federal government. And then the last one is, actually, this might be nested under leading by example, is also putting a pause on new oil and gas leases in the West. Very controversial. You're going to see a tremendous amount of information coming out about how, and really misrepresenting, characterizing that he's putting a pause on all oil and gas drilling in the West. That's not true. It's all on new leases. To give the agency some time to look at the leasing program. For many years, the leases have not been issued at a fair market value. It's taxpayer dollar, it's taxpayer money that's not getting collected for those leases. So it's going to be put on a pause. So that's coming out today. It's a ton of stuff, all within the administration. I'm going to just stop there and just see. I know there's like a ton of stuff in the chat. I can quickly scan to see if there's some questions in here. Okay.
That's okay, Felice, because we only have 15 minutes left. So I'm wondering if you could turn to the Congress and
yes,
legislative plan and budget. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so then in Congress, and I would say there's two things in terms of the role of Congress. One is that, I want to get full screen. One is that for members of Congress to be supportive of what the administration is doing, really important. Because while they are separate branches of government, they all do work together. They have a role to play together, right? So the federal government has it's a big company, right? It's a big company in of itself, but really the ones who are going to give the money to support some of the stuff comes from Congress. So it's important that there is support for the work that's happening. But let me talk about what additionally will be happening in Congress. I would say it's a little bit noisy right now with impeachment and as well as the nominations. Nominations are moving right now. And EDF and our colleagues are working to help make sure that the nomination process goes smoothly. But let me tell you what's most immediate that I think will be really important. We imagine that in the month of February, there's probably going to be a COVID relief bill. And that bill is specifically only focused on COVID relief. So nothing around recovery. Simultaneously, they're working on a recovery bill. And the recovery bill, I don't know if you remember last summer, there was a bill called the Moving Forward Act that the House of Representatives passed. And it had both relief and it had recovery. So it had everything. And so there's going to be, it's likely that the Senate is going to basically start with that bill and make some changes to it. And part of it is going to be looking at tax incentives, boost manufacturing. There's U.S. manufacturing codes that could have not been updated in a while. So making sure that there's tax incentives, tax credits to help jumpstart U.S. manufacturing. Also extending additional incentives or looking for additional incentives for clean energy, battery manufacturing. Again, all the things that you could imagine are going to be necessary if we want to move our entire economy to running on 100% clean energy. We got some work to do to make sure that the system's in place that can actually support that, whether it's batteries, modernizing our grid, modernizing our infrastructure, all of that is an opportunity to begin to move our economy towards 100% clean energy. And some of those things are going to be put into this recovery bill. So timing for that is going to be likely in March, and they're hoping to move that very quickly. This is very ambitious, but they're looking at 4th of July. That's a really short window, but really an important window. Around the same time, we might see the transportation, an infrastructure bill come, but it's not clear if they're going to wait to see they'll probably wait for the recovery bill. But it goes back to what I was mentioning before, which is that, success begets success. If you get some momentum behind a piece of legislation, you got to look at Congress. They've not really been very effective for a while. So it's, they gotta work on that muscle and hopefully can get behind some legislation. Around the same time, there will be the budget. The federal budget can be kind of a sleeper issue. A lot of people don't pay attention to the budget, but it's going to be really important this year to make sure that, again, money is moving into the agencies and into the programs that were cut or have just been notoriously underfunded. So, for example, there's a program in the Department of Energy that provides grants for, innovative new technologies. Again, sounds super sleepy, but, if you think about, we need to modernize a lot of our systems, and there's money in the Department of Energy where they give grants to entrepreneurs and other super smart people that are building again that next generation of technology. So there may be other things popping, but I just want to stop there because I would say the recovery bill is probably the biggest one. It's possible that some climate specific things might come up. One in particular that is really important is something called the Climate Risk Disclosure Act. So this requires companies to disclose the risk of their investments, because investors want to see what risk they're taking on if they're going to invest in a project. And there's a lot of support for something like that, and so that might move. There is a member of Congress who's still looking at possibly doing a climate specific bill. I don't know if that's going to move or it might get reintroduced. There's a bill that's focused specifically on agriculture to set up a voluntary market. So you have agriculture getting involved in setting up a carbon market to change how they manage their land to store carbon. It's a voluntary program. It was introduced last year. That might get reintroduced. So there's some things that moved last year that may get resurrected. And again, you might think like, meh, that's not kind of the big enchilada that we'd be excited to be a part of. But again, it depends on where you live. So I lived in Kansas, and I know that, if I was in Kansas and I knew there was a bill coming and it would, soften the ground and get some of the agriculture groups supportive and get more comfortable thinking about the role that they can play in addressing climate change, I would probably take that opportunity to go meet with my member of Congress. Might not be the thing that's the most exciting, but all politics are local. So I think part of it is also like looking to see what's moving, and then getting a sense about what's a priority for your member of Congress, which is where I want to end. And then I'm going to be quiet, which is because all politics are local, and because members of Congress, whether they're a representative or a senator, Republican or a Democrat, it doesn't matter. They are focused with what's in front of them today. Maybe yes, maybe tomorrow, but really what's focused on for them today. And they also are going to be focused on the things that are personally really of priority to them. If you don't know what your members of Congress priorities are, I would poke around on their websites. It should be apparent on their websites. I would make sure to get on their mailing list and get their constituent mail, because that'll be a really good indicator of what they're going to be concerned about. And if you don't see climate change in there, or you don't see clean energy in there, then you know that, we have an opportunity to begin to have that conversation. Get to know the state director of the local office. Get to know the campaign director. The campaign director's job is to get that person reelected. So they're going to really care what you think. The state director's job is to make sure that the member of Congress is keeping their finger on the pulse of what their constituents care about. Get to know the directors, the state director, campaign director. Don't just always just get shuffled to the staff level. And get to know them early. Get in there, introduce yourself, go in there before you have an ask. Don't wait for an ask to go in. Get to know them. And what they'll like is they'll remember that they met with you. And if you bring someone, an additional civic leader to that meeting, they'll remember that too. And so let's say it's a month from now or 2 months from now, and then there's a piece of legislation right in front of them. And that state director is going to be like, oh, who could our member of Congress meet with who cares about this issue? And they will go, oh, I remember, Lisa came and met with me, or Mary came and met with me, or, you know, Greg came and met with me. And I'm going to facilitate having a meeting with them. So take the time, get to know them, and then and begin to open those lines of communication, and then help and you know and be a resource to them. They might not be tracking every single issue. Guarantee you they aren't tracking every single issue. So that's another role that we can play.
Thank you so much, Felice, for all of that. This is just great. I mean, obviously there's a million moving parts. It's a little discombobulated. It sounds like within Congress and clearly outside of Congress. So over time, hopefully this will, you know, shapen up a little bit in terms of what we really need. And I asked Food and Water Watch for this, and we need a list from inside the movement of what legislation, you know, as collectively as that is represented, what the bill package is or what the legislative agenda is of the movement proactively on its own, so that we can incorporate that into our adopted district. So as you can just see,
I'm going to push a little bit on this, Todd. I know that that's often what you're looking for. I just want to share, the movement is big. The movement is diverse. The movement has lots of immediate priorities. It has more expansive priorities. Some are more focused on the political part of the movement. Some are more focused on building power. And so I will share with you, and I don't know, Todd, if I send it to you and you'll send it to the group of 90 individuals that are gathered here. So I will share, I will be very transparent of the things that are of priority, and just, but also just be, you know, there's no one center of gravity anymore in the movement. And in some ways that's great, right? And I think the opportunities we have in front of us is how do we harvest all of the different centers of gravity? So like today, it's Climate Day in Washington. It's Climate Day for the country. And we hope that across the country, everybody's excited. People are standing on the tops of their roofs, you know, sort of rejoicing that finally we have leadership again. And that's where we have the opportunity to kind of, you know, demonstrate power of the movement. But I think it's going to be hard to sort of say there's only one bill, because there's lots of bills.
Yeah, and I wasn't saying one bill. A list of bills would be great. Like, what does
I will definitely share that. Yeah.
Okay, that would be wonderful. And I asked you to, and we'll compare with our bill package, and we'll use this as an opportunity to try to weave together the constituencies and groups, et cetera. We just need that guidance, and it'll inform. It's not going to substitute our own analysis, obviously, but it will inform. Well, that would be wonderful. Well, this has been great. I think it's exciting.
So keep track of your questions, and I'll be back in a month. And it seems disjointed, but I'm just going to say there within the movement, there is one group very focused on democracy. There's going to be bills moving on democracy. If that's something that's of interest, I will bring that along as well. At least give you a source of where to plug in if you're interested in that. And that's like voter registration, voter access, all the things that we have to fix before 2022, so we don't have the 2020 disaster again.
Yeah, HR 1. One last question before you go, Felice. Is the climate movement, I know we can't, somebody asked about what's the climate movement. It's very diverse and undescribable, needs that level of clarity. It doesn't have it, but that's okay. Is the climate movement writ large? Are people talking about helping to get rid of the filibuster?
There's no consensus. There's no consensus. And you know,
people who want to get rid of it.
What's that?
We don't need necessarily consensus. How about the people who want to get rid of it? What are they going to do to help get rid of it? Or do you know, is there a movement of any kind there?
No, I mean, I think it's on the table, right? I think that there's, but think about it. You've got two you have one of the most, powerful senators who's very adamant, that's Senator Manchin. And then you have another one who's really important, Senator Sinema, who are pretty much on the record saying, like, we're going to stand firm. I just think, again, nothing's off the table. And But I do think that it's an ongoing conversation in all corners. Yeah, I have to hop, but
Yes.
thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited about getting to know all of you, and I'll see you in a month.
Yay. Thank you so much, Felice.
Okay,
To be continued by email. Bye-bye. All right. So that was interesting, isn't it? So what we wanted to do is start to create channels of communication. I'm trying to bring the climate movement into the light. So all the mystery of all these insider players and what they're doing.
I know you've heard from them privately.
I think we're gonna have to mute folks some. And so this is an attempt in that direction. And, it's our first step. I noticed a criticism about, EDF in the email, and I would just ask people to please refrain from criticizing our speakers in the space. We're not unaware of perspectives of different conflicts of that level. And that's why we're going to have different folks from different avenues come in. So we're hearing from different perspectives, and we'll just take it all, and assume the good faith of the people, of the individuals who come and to participate with us. We're just trying to open lines of communication, build relationships. There's a lot of bad history. Everyone understands that. How are we going to unite despite that bad history and transcend it? So this is our challenge for sure. Before we move on to the next phase of our meeting real quick, we just want to highlight the picture that has been created by Ola. Greg, if you could highlight. Ona, sorry. I was just looking for your name. And Ona, if you'd like to say a few words about that. Oh, how exciting. Look at that.
Sure. As I was following, there's so many ideas coming along here. But what I heard the most and the loudest was a need to come together, no matter where you're coming from. So I tried to capture that and just some of the big ideas that came along. If you look closely, you can probably follow the flow. It's a little crazy. It's a lot. But thanks for having me.
All right. This is very exciting. You're welcome to say more about it, but it's very exciting. So I guess it's really for us to enjoy and to explore ourselves, really.
Yeah. It kind of started left and moved along to the right. And we kind of have this wave that's trying to bring us to where we want to go, which is 100% clean energy and the steps to do that. So, it's high level, but if you take a look on your own time, you can the story starts to come together.
And can you put a link in the chat to that document, or are you going to share it with me or whatever? We'll figure that out.
Yeah, I'll share it with you guys because I'm not sure how to provide a link like that, but I'll send it over and then you guys can do that.
All right, we'll send it out in our next update.
Okay.
Well, that was a lovely addition, and I really appreciate you bringing art and all of this to our organizing. It's very nice.
Happy to.
People are saying they love it in the chat. All right, everybody. Well, I think we had a pretty packed meeting for an hour and a half. I hope everyone got their money's worth. It's as clear as mud, as they say, but that's okay. That's all right. At least we're starting the conversation. We're all here together. We're starting to take shape. We have committees, etc. So we're on an ambitious task, which is a little crazy. And you have to be willing to say, we're going to shoot for the moon. And like Elon Musk, if a few of those rockets aren't going to make it, that's part of the price of going big. So we're going to be going big. I was talking to somebody the other day and like, you think we can make this happen? I'm like, I don't know, but we're going to try. And all the energy is going in the right direction. You can see that Congress is going to do what it's going to do. We're going to figure out what really needs to happen. And then after this year is over, we'll see what's missing. And then that's what we'll fight for. And I think we're going to be in good shape to demand a lot more. We'll see how scared they are of the midterm elections as to what everyone wants to do. And just to keep in mind, if you live in West Virginia, we're not going here yet, but Manchin is in West Virginia. There's no reason for people to be walking away from a fight just to get 2 senators to agree to something. And we really need like 10 or 12, maybe 15, 5 Democrats and 10 Republicans to get a real big bill through the Congress, through the Senate. So, we're asking already, who are those 10 Republicans? You might have some names, start thinking about that. We want to make sure we focus our energizing and our organizing in those districts. So without further ado, It's just the beginning. We have a lot to do. I'm going to turn over the meeting. First of all, thank you all. And I'm going to turn over the meeting to Lavona, who will take it from here. And I may or may not stay around. And email me if you have any questions, but preferably email somebody specifically.
Super important question. Ona, can we use your artwork? Can we share your artwork?
Sure, you can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, if we can.
It's gorgeous.
Greg, if you want to spotlight that again real quick for a second, and then people could screenshot it.
Well, Ona, would you screen share it?
Can she screen? Yeah, there you go. So if you can now, you can screenshot it. I'm going to do the same thing.
And I'll send a JPEG because it'll be much better quality.
Okay, and I'll send that out over our next email list when you get everything. But I just screenshot it myself. Oh, yay.
Can I just ask, Ona, did you sign it?
Yeah, I have I signed with my website.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
May I make one more request? This is Lisa. Love the artwork. I'd really like to pump this through. From OFA, I've learned it's great to have a hashtag. So if we as a group right now can come up with a hashtag to go with the artwork, I'd love to use that hashtag with the artwork.
Let's use Climate Unity 2021 is the hashtag we use for the symposium. How's that?
That sounds great.
Okay, I'll put it in.
Climate Unity 2021. This is the message. We have to come together. Yay. All right. Fabulous. I just added it to the chat. Somebody's all right, everybody. This was wonderful. And what a fun meeting today was. All right, Lavona, you want to take it away?
Okay. All right. So what we're going to do now, I'll give you maybe a minute here for those people who want to kind of transition out. And before we start, you might want to stretch. But what we're going to go into now, just in case you came in late, is that this is going to be a little bit of a deeper dive about Adopt a District, and as well as the sector teams, so that you have a little bit better idea. So we did build this as sort of for the faith community because we're having a meeting on Friday and we want to kind of get the 101 type questions answered here, and so that we can do a deeper dive on Friday. But again, anybody outside of the faith community